Welcome to Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. It gives me great pleasure to welcome MPP Michael Mantha to the show. He's the MPP from Algoma, Manitoulin. Michael, it's a real pleasure to have you on Civic Affairs.
Pleasure being here.
I thought we'd start with this. Give the viewers a little background of what you were doing before you got into politics and how you got into wanting to be the MPP for Algoma, Manitoulin.
Well, I shortly came out of the forestry sector, right. And as soon as I got out of high school, it's something that it was a calling to me, is getting into the to cut and skidding, and I did that for a period of about 5 years, right. And then from there I progressed into the sawmill, and it's while I was serving over at the Gugama Forest Product Sawmill, which is now Ecom Mill,
right.
And it's the years that I served there as a labor representative, where labor introduced me to and opened up doors for me to walk in and really start learning the process. And from there, they pulled me out of the sawmill, put me on staff. That's how I ended up in Wawa. I was servicing some forestry, collective agreements, nursing, taxi cabs, engineers, a little bit of everything. And it's really what gave me the tools. A lot of what I was doing through negotiation, mediation, conciliation, negotiations, learning how to deal with management.
Right.
While those same tools, you use them as an MPP.
Right.
Well, when the forest industry took a downturn in roughly about 2005, 6, and 7, the local that I came from, we were roughly about 3,800 members. We dropped down to about 800 members. Right. So difficult decisions were made, and being a northern boy tied with that labor background, it was really difficult for me to finding work. But luckily enough, I was hired as a resource coordinator of a rapid reemployment center, right. Up in Wawa and Dubreuilville, along with servicing the community of White River. And my job was to find jobs for people. And through that, you just got connected with learning who your service providers were, and not just working for the ones that were affected by job loss, but you had to look after the family as well. Right. The pressures and the depressions that happen with job loss, and it's a roller coaster ride that you go through of emotions, not only for mom and dad, but the community as a whole and the kids. So learning those services and learning who your service providers were, and then the opportunity came where the program had ended, and the federal member, who was Carol Hughes at that time, she was looking for some volunteers for her campaign, and I said, "Oh, Carol, I'll help you out." And I helped her out, and as soon as the election was done, I got a call the next morning. She says, "Well, listen, I think you'd be a perfect fit for me," and so I started working for Carol, and it's really the experience that I've had through the labor movement, through identifying who the service providers were. And when the opportunity came for the provincial election, everything, it was like this path was laid out for me. And I just followed the path. Every time a window closed, there was another opportunity in the door. Open. And I just walked through it. And I have to tell you, is sometimes it takes an individual a while to find out what their calling is, but this is what I'm supposed to do. And I love my job. I love every corner of Algoma, Manitoulin. I've got 37 municipalities, 22 First Nations. I cover an area of roughly about 92,000 kilometers square. And yeah, I love it.
That's great. Yeah, Chrissy from your office mentioned something, and the viewers will be interested to know that you actually have some streets in Sault Ste. Marie that are part of your riding. Is that true?
That's correct.
I did not know that.
So as soon as I get into Rankin Batchewana First Nation, right. That's part of my riding. And then I drive through Great Northern Road, and then I get down to Town Line. Town Line is in my riding.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's funny because I do a lot of house calls here in Sault Ste. Marie, because some people that live here in Sault Ste. Marie have family work outside in Algoma, Manitoulin, outside of Sault Ste. Marie.
Right.
And so I do...
let's say in Thessalon or whatever.
Yeah. Either in Thessalon or just on the outskirts, or right here in SR. There's a lot of people from Goulet River or Searchmont that work in the forest industry or even work at the mill here. And, right. I do...
they just choose to live outside of Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, absolutely. Just we have such a beautiful resources that are out there, and people enjoy the fishing, the nature that we have, the hunting that we have, the trails. We're very fortunate here in Northern Ontario.
Now, my next question was actually what we just talked about, is how do you deal with such a big riding? You must have to be more organized than most of the MPPs in your party.
Well, it's to me it makes sense, and it's just a matter of really setting yourself up. So I'm on my constituency week right now, and normally what I do on a regular constituency week, I've divided up the riding into 3 sections. So I have my northern riding, which includes the communities of Chapleau, Wawa, Dubreuilville, Hornepayne, Manitouwadge, along with Hornepayne and Wet River.
Right.
And so that's one area. Then I have the Manitoulin area, which is an area on its own.
Pretty big, yeah.
And then I have the North Shore. The North Shore, which includes the Sioux North area. So what I do is I cycle those on my constituency weeks, where one week I will do the northern part of my riding along with the Sioux North area.
Right.
The following month, I will do Manitoulin Island with the west part of my riding. And then the third month, I will focus on the North Shore.
Right.
And then on weekend, sometimes you have community events that you have to attend. My summers are always packed with community events in the weekend. And I try my very best to getting to each and every one of my communities at least 3, if not 4, sometimes 5 times a year.
Great, wow, yeah. That's, and it's cycling, that works like I was always taught, when you have a big job, you break it into smaller parts, and it works that way.
It works, and it's a commitment that I had made when I was elected, is I told people that, listen, you're going to get to know me, you'll get to meet me, you're going to sit down. I am not going to be a picture, cake cutting, ribbon cutting type of individual. I'm a public servant in a role of a politician, is how I feel, and I believe that people are entitled to having access to their MPP, good or bad. I'm going to go into that community and I'm going to take my lickings.
Excellent. We'll just take a quick break now for some commercials, and we'll be right back with MPP Michael Mantha after these messages. Welcome back to Civic Affairs. Delighted to be talking to MPP from Algoma, Manitoulin, Michael Mantha. And we're going to talk about some of your clinics that you do during constituency week. Can you tell us a little about what that involves? Sure.
There's some confusion about what actually happens at a clinic, and again, it's a commitment that I had made when I was elected in order to make myself available so that people can come in and have that one-on-one discussion that they want with their member of parliament, and also where people are not comfortable in a large group sitting where they feel sometimes intimidated, where certain individuals will come out and carry the conversation and people will shy away. So this is an opportunity for me, for no special reason and no particular agenda. I just make myself available. And people come in, we chat about their personal issues, problems, challenges that they have, their hardships, and I try my best to make myself available.
How well are these clinics attended usually?
They're fairly well attended.
Right.
There are particular communities much higher than others, and I've had to actually extend my clinics in order to make the time and to make sure that I capture all what the issues that are coming forward. But the people of Algoma, Manitoulin have become accustomed to their MPPs because I do a lot of house calls.
Right.
And I'm on the highway consistently. And I will normally just pop in to somebody's house as I'm traveling on the road, whether it's 7 or 8 o'clock at night, sometimes 9 o'clock. And I've stopped in, particularly in the Harmony Beach area, a couple of times at 10 o'clock at night. And it just people appreciated that you take the time to
Wow.
go listen to them. And
You're
and
in
hear
Sault
their-
Ste. Marie now. You might just do that when you on your way back to Elliott Lake. Right?
That's a couple of the things. I just came out of Searchmont right now, and tonight I'm after we're finished the show today. As a
Right.
matter of fact, I'm meeting up with someone over at Casey's just to go over some challenging issues that that person is facing.
Wow. Bud Wildman, did you, Tony Martin, our politicians here, did you talk to them before you made up your mind about this commitment of being an MPP?
Yeah. Again, making the decision, they were a big part of me making the decision to run forward because, you have some of the two best representatives for this area.
Definitely.
And the experience they had. And it's always nice that you have both of them that I can always go to asking for advice because they have the history of the entire area here. But sitting down with both of them, and at the end I had brought my wife along, and their wives were there as well, and I wanted to know what is the life of a politician. And I have to say that they were very forthcoming with the information.
Right.
But there's no way to explain the experience and the actual workload that a member of provincial parliament or even a member of federal parliament, the actual commitment that you put in, the more work that you put into this job, the more you get back. And it's not always the thank yous that you're going to get, but it's just knowing that you're having an impact on somebody's life.
Is there one particular thing that you learned from Tony Martin or Bud Wildman that now you can say today that it's really helped you do this job of an MPP?
Return your calls. Return your calls, and when you make a commitment, live up to your commitment. Don't give false expectation. That's the worst thing that you can do. And know your limits. As you know, when I first started out, I wanted to fix everything, and I thought I could do everything.
Right.
And I tried my best, but I've learned through some failures that you have to be honest with yourself and also honest with your constituents, and let them know that there are limits, and you don't have that magic wand. Mind you, at times I've even surprised myself and others that we were able to fix certain issues, but at times you just have to tell people that, I can't, I'm sorry, I'm going to try in the future, maybe we'll be able to help somebody else.
Right.
But, at the present time, my hands are tied, and unfortunately there's nothing that I can do at this point.
And of course, yeah, if you don't have the answer, you don't, like in life, you just don't make the answer up and stuff like that.
Again, that's the worst thing you can do is give a false expectation to someone. Is the golden rules: be honest, return your calls, no false expectation, and try your best.
Michael, my feeling is that the majority government is working against the people of Ontario, and I specifically bring out the example of, with no third party, how the government and the Premier is treating the process of the question period. What's your take on that? This has been there for hundreds of years in this province, and now the government is seems to be making a mockery out of it.
Yeah, making a mockery, and also, when the Premier struggles with certain issues, he just makes it up as he goes along, and it is frustrating. And I have to say, this is something that I've explained to people in Algoma, Manitoulin. I take my role sitting in the house quite seriously.
Right.
I listen. I don't heckle in the house where we have other people. They have their own styles. That is definitely not my style. I like to listen. I like to read body language. I like to listen to the answer, because you can always seem to pick something that you're going to be able to use. And as in an opposition, above on the government side, I look up to the eagle. The eagle tells me to be vigilant, and I'm looking at the government, and they need to look up to the owl that is behind me and being wise in regards to the decisions that they're making. But more and more, when I come back in my constituency clinic and at community events, people are frustrated because they don't see question period as being productive.
Right.
They don't see it as being an effective tool, and they don't see them getting answers to a lot of the questions that the opposition is bringing forward. And more you're seeing it as playing towards the cameras, and it's frustrating.
I'm quite shocked, because I'm originally from Toronto. I've followed this for 40 plus years, and I haven't seen question period at Queen's Park quite the way it is today.
Yeah, it is disappointing. But the one thing, that I always tell constituents in Algoma Manitoulin is question period is only an hour and a half a day.
Right.
It's up to the MPP to doing the work after the cameras are off. Is once the cameras are pulled away and they're not on you, walk across, build your bridge, establish your relationship, have your off-the-record conversations.
You have to do that.
You have to do it, and pull them aside and say, hey, like, what was that answer? You weren't even close.
Exactly.
I was talking about apples and you came at me with, I don't know what the heck you came with.
Yeah.
But it's just, this is what my challenge are. And you have to build those relationships. And not only that is, after question period is done, we have these evening receptions. And that's where you get to meet the bureaucrats.
Right.
And the bureaucrats are the individuals that work on the projects and build the policy that give those references or that guide to the minister or the individuals that are sitting in government. And working on those individuals is also very
where you
important.
gotta go too.
Well, yeah, because as a staffer, I know who does the work.
That's
like,
right.
Who makes me look good is my staff in my constituency office. And I have Grant, Chrissy, Vicky, and Cindy, and Thomas up in Toronto. I know who does the work because I was there. I respect the work that they do. So in the same token, when I'm over at Queen's Park, I make sure to build those bridges with those that are behind the scenes that we don't always see.
We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with much more with MPP Michael Mantha right after these commercials. Welcome back to Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. It's a thrill to be talking with MPP Michael Mantha from Algoma Manitoulin. And we've got a few more minutes to talk. And I was wondering, Michael, too much spending by the Liberals, too much cutting by the Premier and the PCs. There's got to be a better way to do it in government at Queen's Park than what we're seeing now, and especially for Northern Ontario.
Yeah, there's definitely a better way out there. And when this government came in, with the cutting and slashing that they've been doing, saying that we're doing this for the people and basically saying that we're all going to have to take a hit on this. But in the meantime, where you see those that are in much wealthier positions are getting huge corporate tax breaks. And when we're looking at cuts to programs, then why did this government make those cuts and then tell regular Ontarians, everyday Ontarians, that you're going to have to do more with less? Mm-hmm. And that's the frustrating part, is the cuts are not being even, and a lot of the downloading that is happening on everyday people. It's happening, and we're going to see more of it. Mm-hmm. There's no end, particularly to this first budget that they've brought through, where the cuts are going to be impacting more and more people. As we're starting to scratch and we're starting to look at and really analyze the budget, we see more and more of the cuts that are coming.
It's coming a lot quicker than people think. What are you hearing as the biggest concerns in Northern Ontario and Algoma Manitoulin right now?
Well, the bigger concerns is infrastructure. We just finished our winter months, and one of the biggest ones is our winter road maintenance, where we see our roads deteriorating to the point where they're dangerous, where we see regular snowfalls that are coming in, and we don't see any plows on our roads. That's a lot of what I've been dealing over the course of the winter. We see the cuts to education. We see the changes that are going in the education where there was a grace period where students were coming out of college and university. That grace period is gone, and you're going to have to start paying immediately upon coming out of school where you still don't have a job. Where you see where kids are going to be forced with cuts, where we're going to have larger class sizes, where we're going to have less teachers and guidance counselors who are going to be there for our children, less support for children that are in special needs for our school. And also, guess what? You're going to be forced to mandatorily go through e-learning courses that you're going to need to do 4 of them per year. Well, guess what? In Northern Ontario, that we don't have that everybody else in Southern Ontario has, we don't have proper access to broadband internet. And the decisions this government made continues to be compounded because now they've made huge cuts to our public libraries. And where were kids going, students going, in order to get the access? Because not everybody has internet services in their home. We have, quite frankly, a lot of people across Algoma, Manitoulin that are still relying on dial-up. Right. And some just can't afford it.
And in Sault Ste. Marie here, we don't think of that because we have it all here, but that is the reality of what...
Well, if you just go on the outskirts of Sault Ste. Marie, you don't have to go very far.
Right.
And there's still the struggles of having proper, affordable broadband internet. So when you had those community hubs, your community libraries that have now, their budgets have been cut by a substantial amount, they are forced to making decisions where they won't be able to provide those services. So where kids were going to their community libraries, where to them it's part of where I go networking, it's where I go to see people, it's where I go to do my homework, it's where I go to have access to Wi-Fi or internet.
It's not a good combination.
No, and again, these are just decisions that this government keeps doing that are compounding, that are falling on the backs of municipalities and everyday community people.
Exactly. The level 3 withdrawal facility was asked for a year ago when this government came in for Sault Ste. Marie. A year has gone by and nothing has happened. What do you see the government is doing? Why they're not granting Sault Ste. Marie the level 3 withdrawal facility at Sault area hospitals?
Well, I mean,
you must have heard about that.
Oh, yeah, no, and I put in my support for this particular project. And you see, when you look at the numbers, the Algoma area is one of the highest per capita level areas that absolutely needs the services. We've got opioid problems that are in this area that are higher than any other levels in this province, and we absolutely need those resources here. But when you look at a government that came in and took away $331 million away from investment in mental health, where you see their focus is going towards tailgating and branding our license plates.
Beer in the store, corner store.
And that's the frustrating part is when I sit down with people, whether I'm in the lineup over at the Tim Hortons or at the Canadian Tire, and we strike up a conversation, it almost makes you want to laugh, but it's a frustrating laugh. Whereas, how does this government identify themselves as they're for the people, as they say? Who are those people? Because it's not my priorities. My priority is making sure that I have proper health care. My priority is that my kids can go to school and get proper education and the supports that they need. My priorities are to making sure that things are affordable, that my hydro prices come down, that I can afford my car insurance. My priorities are that I'm able to take care of my mom and that there's proper health care, not only for in our hospitals and the waiting lists are gone, but that there's home care so that we can take the pressures off of our hospitals and that those PSWs that should be respected, properly paid and compensated for the amount of time that they put into their jobs, that are also provided with good opportunity in order for them to grow. Those are the priorities that I heard when I was knocking on doors. So I'm not quite sure.
We're not getting them
I'm not sure where Mr. Ford's priority is.
Or he's doing it on the flying by the seat of his pants.
Well, you know, I hate to say this, but Mr. Ford is doing things in a way that they're very confrontational. And I'm going to distract you with a whole bunch of other things. And while you are looking over here, you're not noticing what is happening over here. And what's happening over here is a privatization of our healthcare system, is opening up the door for more fees for service under our healthcare system. And it's frightening to see that you and I and everybody in our communities, at one point or another, we're going to be paying more for our health care.
2022, it's going to be a different ball game.
Well, they're really changing things bad enough that we won't be able to recognize this province at the end of 4 years, and it's going to be, and again, I'm going to be in this for a very long time. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. It's frustrating, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm going to be around for a long time.
Michael, it's been a thrill. I'm out of time. We're going to have you on again. I've enjoyed it.
I'm going to love coming back, and I'm planning on being around for a while.
We're going to continue with it. That's Michael Mantha, MPP from Algoma, Manitoulin, and that's another edition of Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. We'll see you next time.